are you?
Matthew Gideon, Captain. Attached to the Earth Alliance starship Excalibur.
What do you want?
To find a cure to the Drakh plague before it wipes out all life on Earth.
Where are you going?
Anywhere I have to.
Who do you serve, and who do you trust?
Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, Season 6.5, Chatzylon 5 presents Crusade Chats. My name is Alan, and I'm joined as always by the man who has a wallet where his heart is. It's Magellan, everyone.
Hey, what's up? I'm here, corporate.
Can I get your best Max Eilerson impression, bud?
Yeah, hold on. Give me something to say.
I have my people searching.
Okay.
The archives.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to think about, picturing sort of McDonald's purchasing the space of a local mom and pop food place and bulldozing it. Okay, I'm getting in the space.
There
All right.
it is.
I have my people searching the grounds. That's not my best. I'll return to it. I do want to master that impression though.
Well, welcome, Magellan. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here in this space.
And here in the space together, we talk about 2 episodes of a cult classic TV show every week. And this week, I have to tell the folks at home that the best piece of advice I've ever received is never eat anything bigger than your head. Never shoot pool at a place called Pops. Never eat food at a place named Mom's. And always discuss bad sci-fi with Ryan from Spin Polish Presents. Welcome to the podcast.
Howdy, y'all. It's me, Senator Dadgum. I'm sorry, I have to get that out of the way. The senator said Dadgum several times.
He said, he did.
And he winked a lot. So yes, it's me, Ryan Sawinski here from the Spin Polish podcast. Bad sci-fi. This is my first time discussing bad sci-fi with you. I've discussed nothing but brilliance before.
We needed to recruit you for this episode because we are in the dregs of this TV show.
Dadgum, this was a brilliant episode, son. Now listen up. Yeah.
Do that the whole time, please.
How did it feel to have someone represent your people like that?
I was just gonna say you've balanced the scales for all the times that we've done like bad accents of other English native speakers around the world.
Yippee-ki-yay!
Exactly.
Pew, pew, pew! That's me shooting my guns in the air. Pew, pew, pew.
Wow. I mean, that's it. My neighbor down the street does stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, exactly, y'all. I'm Senator of the Earth. Yeah, it was amazing. The Drakh, not the Drock. The Drakh.
The damn
plague.
Drakh.
Those
He
damn
does.
Drakh.
Yeah.
I got some Drakh on my boot. Yeah, exactly. So he represented your people very well in this episode. So thanks, guys, for having me on for Crusade. I asked for 2 other episodes, but they were already taken because people knew that there were better episodes to pick.
You're in your 3rd pick right now, yeah.
And I said to Alan, the literal reason I picked this episode is because there's 2 of the Babylon 5 actors in it, and that's literally the only reason. I did not remember the plot. Nothing. I just chose this one has Franklin in it, and this one has Lockley in it. That is it.
It certainly does. And if people at home aren't clear, we are talking about JMS Order Episode 7, Each Night I Dream of Home. It's broadcast Episode 13, and it's on Disc 4 if you're watching by the DVDs. Mm-hmm. This episode was written by J. Michael Straczynski. It was directed by Veer himself, Stephen Furst. Wow!
I miss him. I can feel his hand on the wheel here.
All right, no need to be sexual about it, but yeah, I could feel it.
Can't help it when I think about Veer.
A character did say daddy in this episode, by the way. The senator did say daddy. So
Daddy? Bobby? This episode aired September 1st, 1999, and it takes place somewhere in the late May of 2267. Evident by the fact that somebody, I think Max maybe says, he says in the 2nd episode where he's like, in the last 2 weeks, I've had a really busy time with all these missions. And I'm like, this whole show takes place in basically a month. It's great.
Yeah.
Magellan, what happens in Each Night I Dream of Home?
In this episode, former Babylon 5 Medical Chief of Staff Dr. Stephen Franklin comes to the Excalibur to oversee an experiment that may strike a blow against the Drock Plague. The Drock strike a blow of their own. What a horrible,
oh, they blow
horrible
right.
summary that uses the same thing twice. The Drock strike a blow of their own, launching an attack after the experimentation gets underway. So, what did we think of Each Night I Dream of Home?
It was an episode. I don't know. It had its moments. I am not rewatching Crusades like you guys are, so I don't know how it feels in quality to the rest. But as an isolated episode that I've watched just after watching B5, I'm like, it reminds me of like the quality of The Gathering. Like it's kind of a mishmash of things, but some elements work and some don't.
Yeah, it's. My thing is that this episode it throws all of the good things that make a Babylon 5 episode good at Crusade's cast, and it's like, look, just make something good out of this. I don't know, here's Franklin, here's a great, like, politically cool medical plot. We have Dr. Chambers getting things to do. We have Locklear for some reason. Is it good? I don't know. It's kind of a messy episode, and it throws a lot of things at the wall, and some of them work and some of them really don't.
Yeah.
I think overall I did like it, but it's like it reflects how much of a mess Crusade is that even bringing over like my favorite Babylon 5 character, Franklin, it's like they still can't salvage this fully.
Yeah.
Wait, what? What? Wait.
What? Which part are you disagreeing with?
This episode was great.
Oh, what?
Well, okay, Magellan. Okay, let's hear from
This
you.
was
All right, Spicy
This was
Jeff,
a really
hit me with
good
it.
episode. What are we
Oh,
talking
was?
about?
Okay, let's hear it from you. Tell us why.
Tell me about it.
The dialogue was well written. You get cool, characterful interactions between a bunch of different pairs of people. Gideon and Lieutenant. Oh, I always forget the lieutenant's name. Matheson.
You know why you
Gideon
you know
and
why you
Lockley
forget? You know why
finally
you forget?
exists.
They're all called the
Whatever.
same names. You got Matthew Gideon and then Matheson. And then you have like, there's like two other characters that have similar sounding names. Like there's
and big M names.
yeah, or big G names. Like you got a Gideon.
There's a lot of generic ass names in
Galen,
this show.
and
It's
it's like very similar sounding names. Like I forgot that he was
Mhm.
called Matheson. I was like, isn't that the first name of Gideon? No, that's Matthew. Sorry, but go on, Magellan. I'm sorry, I just had to get that in.
And then you get Lockley finally exists again, and we can talk about how they don't do that super well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Franklin, and Richard Biggs is so good. And it's just like we get this like genuine medical. It's not really like that big of a problem, but we just get an insight into how he's dealing with the Drock Plague and the way that it messes with people's morality. And I don't know, it was pretty much the only Crusade episode where I was like, oh, this is a Babylon 5 spinoff, and it is that, and that is a good thing. Instead of other episodes where I've been like, in order to enjoy the Techno Mages, I have to forget about the show that I love. I have to erase it from my brain. Oh my god, in order to enjoy this X-Files parody, I have to forget about
X-Files,
Londo.
Yeah.
And forget about X-Files being way better.
La la la, I hate the Techno Mages because my name is Magellan, which has mage in it. La 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 la, yeah.
Oh boy.
You just clapped my friend right there.
La, la,
That's,
la.
like, that's it.
I agree with you on points. I agree with you
I
on
had a
points.
good
There's some
time.
things that work.
I will, yeah. There are things I didn't like about it, but we'll talk about it. I think in the span of Crusade episodes, maybe it wasn't my favorite, but I think it was like the best executed and felt the most like the tone of good Babylon 5.
Yeah, I think the big problem I had with a lot of what you kind of touched on is it just feels like a lot of it doesn't pay off or matter a lot. It's like we got Lockley here, but she literally serves no actual purpose other than setting up that Gideon has a thing for her. That's kind of about it. Like in real plot, she does literally nothing. Like she goes out to help the spaceships, but that doesn't matter. We don't see her fighting in the spaceships very much or doing anything of note like we did in Babylon 5.
It's deeply frustrating.
So she serves no point, and then like Franklin's here, but I have a big problem with Franklin being here, and I don't 100% agree that Richard Biggs is nailing it all the time. There were some deliveries where I was just like, okay, but it's a thing of it's a systemic issue of the entire episode and show for me. And for me, I've just seen Richard Biggs in B5 acting, so it's just like, oh yeah, I've just come off of seeing him, and then here he is in this, so it's like I've noticed differences in the performance, and I'm like, oh yeah. For him, it's been a couple of years since he's done Franklin, so it's like, okay.
I guess that's true, yeah. I mean, you might just be seeing the fact that his face is restricted by his goatee.
That terrible.
He doesn't have the freedom of expression.
Terrible goatee. Is it worse or better than Sheridan's?
I like the goatee. I think it's
you
better
sure?
than Sheridan.
You sure? Because
Magellan, a tiny mouse in the corner. Just like,
I like in the first few episodes, you didn't mind Sheridan's goatee, but then it grew on you that you didn't like it. So
it's Sheridan's goatee is bad. Sheridan's beard is the best. So on a scale from Sheridan goatee to Sheridan beard, I would say Franklin goatee is like probably a 5.
I think Franklin's goatee is too thin in weird locations on his face. Like his upper lip is like a little pencil mustache, and then like
that's what makes me like it. That's what I like.
I don't know. I got distracted by it too much. I was looking at it. I was just like, I'm distracted by this.
So why don't we talk about Lockley first, maybe?
Because she's the most incidental.
Yeah, and so. Is this the only time we see Lockley, or do we see her again?
I think you see her again.
Okay, good.
I think also because in the opening credits, they show you footage of things that will happen in the season, and you see some footage of her that isn't in this episode. I really can't remember. I don't think it's a spoiler, but I do think that they do go to Babylon 5 proper at one point, but I can't remember because it's boring.
I gotcha. It felt strange to me that it's not explained what she was doing floating out in space, right?
They did
Is that
explain
explained?
They did. She just says, I was out here looking for some raiders, and they set a big trap for me, and I got lost. It was just like...
But why is the Captain of Babylon 5 doing that?
Because that's what they've always done in the show. They did that with Sinclair. They did that with Sheridan. They did it with Ivanova. They do it with all of them.
Like, how many times did we ask ourselves, wait, why is the captain out? Are they the captain? And but she just is that kind of person.
At least in B5 they explain like they're on a death-seeking mission, or Sheridan's new and he doesn't understand, or Ivanova's over her head and then she literally gets hit in the head and gets her spine fucked over. But like, you know, like it's...
Yeah, Lockley's never been reckless like that, I don't think.
She's more like, I'll negotiate with the terrorists. That's kind of what she was like.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's stranded out in space for some reason, and that's the first time we see her in the show. It'll be interesting when we see her again, because when they bring her aboard, they don't know it's her. Gideon just makes this whole point of like, I was stranded once, so like I'm gonna save whoever it is, and then Lyndon Johnson is like, don't you do that, Captain Gideon.
Wink, wink. Do it. Wink, wink.
And then he saves her. And then it's clear that Gideon and Lockley know each other. So, because he says it's good to see you again. So I'll be interested to see how the chronology lines up with whenever we see Lockley again. Because if JMS order is like, this is the first time she's in the show, are they going to act like they're meeting each other in another episode? Is that going to be weird? That's an open question that I guess remains to be answered. But then Gideon like hits on her hardcore and is like, hey, let's have a first date and I'll serve you. The line is like, it's okay. Let me ask a question about this line.
Yep.
So Alan, you shared the aphorism that Gideon had to like be dodgy about telling her something.
About Franklin.
And one of the parts of it is don't eat anything bigger than your head. And then he's like, you want to come to my quarters, get some food? And she's like, are you going to serve you anything bigger than my head? Are you going to serve me anything bigger than my head? And he says, not on a first date. So is that a dick joke?
I guess.
I think he's just being coy.
Okay.
I think it was cute. I don't know, like, they somewhat had chemistry because they're both brash, no-nonsense kind of people who are also, like, a bit cheeky. So it's like, maybe if we saw more of it, it could be cool. I'm down for Gideon getting some love. He's a weirdo. Let him have someone to be weird with. But it's like, Lockley is also that character. It's like, we had a whole season of B5 and some movies, and I still don't know jack shit about her, really. She's in the episode, at least. You know what bugged me? When she's in the ship, she's got a crack on her helmet, and you can just tell it's painted on because they got to use that helmet again later for something. Like, it's just like such lazy production design in this show.
Yeah.
And lighting, like, my biggest thing was I was like, I missed the B5 lighting where it was kind of moody and shadowy and it was hiding the cracks of the set, like, you know, of how it looks like a set. In this, when they're in the med bay, it's like fluorescent bright lighting, and I'm like, I'm just noticing that that's a fake wall, and those are some fake doors. Like, you know, it's just like little things like that. Or when she's like...
There is a moment when an explosion happens towards the end of the episode where somebody is blown backwards on a column or like a platform on the floor that's there for no reason other than for him to fall over.
Yeah, that's sci-fi for you.
That's very old Star Trek, too. It's just like, oh no, the thing to fall on.
Yeah. She does get up at one point and start walking around, and you're like, oh, maybe she'll walk in and see Franklin, and it'll be like a moment. And the episode teases that at the end. How did you guys feel about
why wouldn't they? I guess because they actually physically didn't get them at the same time, you think?
No, I think it's just in the context of the episode, it's like it's all classified and she wasn't a part of the crew. She was just like a straggler. I think it's that typical framing thing of two people that know each other just missed each other. Isn't that sad? But here's the thing. How much did Lockley and Franklin ever really interact? If they did reunite...
Like basically never.
Minimally,
if they did reunite, it would be like, hey, it's that woman. Hey, it's that guy. That would be it. If it was Ivanova...
Good to see you, yeah.
If it was Ivanova, it would be
like
more
if you
poignant.
ran into the HR person from 2 jobs ago. Oh, hey.
Hey.
What's up?
What's up? If it was Corwin, it would be more. Like...
Yeah.
I'd love it if this episode it was Corwin instead of Lockley. It would be great. I miss that guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's the cameo we really need. I guess that's the explanation for why is everything involving Franklin is classified info, like him being in the pod and all of that is government stuff that no one's supposed to know about, especially someone who knows him. The one moment with Lockley that I think Tracy Scoggins does really well, and it's framed really well, and it's just a good like 3 seconds, is when everybody is mobilizing to fight the Drock ship and like get to their places, and she's just standing like with, I think she has her cane at this point, amongst like a million people running in a million directions, and she just has this air of like, oh boy, this again.
Yeah.
Because she has been through so many massive tragic conflicts, and she's watching this like go-getter small little ship full of people trying to just like get their things together, and like you see the weight of all of these years of stress on her. And then it's gone, and then she has nothing else to do.
No, then she gets into her pilot gear and is like, let me sort it.
Let me fix the plot of the episode by minimizing casualties, basically.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. It happens off screen. I rewatched the whole back end of this episode because honestly, part of it was I didn't know what happened to the guy, and they don't really say a lot. They just, like, David, by the way, the guy who is the patient zero of the Drock Plague, his whole thing being that he wants to go back to his wife to get married on Earth, but he has to opt into getting himself infected so that he can get through the blockade. And they learn this over the course of the episode through Gideon's resources and whatnot, and through Franklin. And once everything goes bad, he gets knocked out. Franklin saves his life. They're friends, and he's gone. And the implication is that he gets to leave. He gets to go back home.
Yeah, he's put on a shuttle back to Earth, and that's it. And we know he's going to get married because Franklin's invited, and that's it. And it's kind of like, oh, life goes on. Even though we're all going to die, people still get married. Think about that.
People still have kids and still get married.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah.
I really liked that David plotline. I think that's the strongest thing in this episode is the idea that this guy so badly just wants this last excuse to live before humanity is wiped out, that he's like, I will take the ultimate risk and allow myself to do this if it means that I get to be with this person.
Yeah, I wish we...
Cool idea on paper, but everyone's performance in it. Like, he's not great acting-wise. The wife in the vid call is, like, not even moving anything but her mouth.
you. I love
David,
you.
It's you.
Can I ask you a question? I've never thought about this, but when they have those conversations through the TV screens, when they touch the screen, what does
Nothing
the other
happens.
person see?
Yeah, it's probably just he's covering like
that.
the camera.
Because
I did
the
think about
camera's
that.
not the screen. The camera would be like
probably
above
above
the
the screen.
screen, so they just see. And also, I found it was really weird. If you look at it, it's really awkwardly framed where he puts his hands. They're very much like direct on her chest, and I was like, "Come on,
Come on, it's covering the whole screen. I don't think it's like that.
he goes straight to
It's
it."
definitely
I thought
silly
it
because no
was-
one's ever touched a screen before.
They have.
Yeah, what I thought was weird is when he goes to touch the screen and she does not move at all.
Well, she's sitting
just
really
like,
far
yeah.
away. She's sitting really far away. She's on a chair. She doesn't want to get up for him. God.
I don't feel like getting up. It's
Right.
your...
I'm just not feeling from her the love that he's he's giving. And when he's like, "I love you," and she's like, "I love you." Do you?
Do you? Is that real? Okay.
I wish that we got to know David more. A very similar-ish type episode, medical episode in B5 that I think about is the first Real Franklin one where those parents don't want him to perform on the operation on their kid.
Yes.
And we spend the whole
Yeah.
episode getting to know him, the kid, Franklin, and those parents. And David, we get one scene with Gideon, and that's it. Like, that's
True.
all you get on his interiority about the whole thing. You don't get...
I think that's why I liked this episode, because it was reminiscent of
The best Franklin
when they
medical
would do Franklin medical episodes.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
I agree. Too bad Sarah Chambers is a really dull character and doesn't have any of the nuance
Yeah.
or persistence, interest in medical science like Franklin does.
The moment I loved with her was actually when she was talking to him after everyone else is asleep.
Mm.
Because again, I'm always the mark for people being up late at night talking to each other honestly in TV shows.
Uh-huh.
And he's left at this point, and they have this call where he's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Not sleeping." And when they finish the conversation, he says, "I'll let you get back to not sleeping."
Yeah.
I thought that moment was a really good performance from both her and from him. Talking about like the virus is testing them, it must be a hive mind, and that they need to stay close on the info and continue talking. Just like a very good, honest performance. But again, like I think the main problem with the person playing Chambers is that she's kind of playing it very low energy. Even though she's like the doctor.
Yeah.
And so I get what you're saying, where it's like her performance is not as good.
Well, it's also I think it's in the writing too. Like
Exactly.
How could you? It's sort of the question that is posed in maybe it's the Red Letter Media review of the prequels, one of the prequel Star Wars movies, where it's like what words can you use to describe these characters? And like in the original trilogy, you can think of adjectives that describe like who they are and how they are in the world, and in the prequels it's like, well, this is the Jedi guy.
He's stoic.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like with Franklin, you can think of all sorts of ways to describe him as a person. And with Sarah Chambers, I just don't really get who she is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what really ruins the episode. Well, ruins Hat's story for me. They have a quick scene of David talking to her and explaining for us, the audience, and to her that he wants to be infected. And then they never follow that through. So then later, Franklin's like, yeah, he's going to be infected. And she's like, David Williams, of course. And it's like, didn't you already know this? How did the rest of that conversation go before the ad break went on? Where David's sitting with her saying, I want to be infected. Did it just end there? Like their conversation? How did she not realize that? And that scene exists purely for us, the audience. And I think that nullifies the interest of that surprise that Franklin's going to subject a person to the virus, because we've already, as the audience, we already know that David wants it. So all the ethical, moral quandaries are null and void, because we, the audience, already know it's all fine. While in the Franklin episode where he performs the operation on the kid, the parents are against it, and even Sinclair was against it. But we understand why he should do it, because we understand medical science. But like, there's no conflict in this episode other than Franklin having a conflict about whether or not he should push the button. And that's a character that's not in this show. He's from a previous show. So we're watching a conflict of a character from another show. Sarah Chambers' only conflict is, Franklin, just let me push the button. And that's her conflict. That's it.
Right.
We don't get any interiority on her. We don't understand what she thinks of ethics and science and medicine.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
And David, he's totally fine with it. There's no ifs and or buts. He doesn't have a little moment where it's like, I could, like he's just like, we all die, baby. It's all good.
I think the part of the reason that it feels that way is because like they didn't kill him, and I thought for sure that David would have died, either from the room malfunctioning or
getting knocked out at the end.
Yeah, or what I thought could have happened that would have made a lot of sense is they talk about how when the Drock plague first hit Earth, the whole way that the virus works is it like tries out different virus modes to see what kills people. And they talk about how like when it first hit, a few hundred people died of a rare strain of Ebola, and then later that day several hundred people died of a rare strain of hepatitis B that we hadn't seen before. And so I was curious, what I would have liked to see is they infect David with the virus, and then they're like, cool, we got it, we saw it, and then he's like, oh no, you guys, I've got Ebola, and then he dies, and they're like, fuck, he was like one of the 0.5% of people that dies this way. Or like, turns out that the virus learned and killed him real quick. And I think that would have maybe given the moral conflict more weight. Because then they could have been like, well, we got it. We know what it looks like, but we literally killed this guy.
Yeah, or you could even have it that the Drock who are in this episode, if they were the Drock from Babylon 5, not the Drock that is all basic, that basically act like...
not the Drock from Power Rangers.
Not the Drock that are not the Drock that are just the Drazi, but the Drock from Babylon 5, it was them. They would have intercepted that message, and they would have used their nanomachine technology or whatever to get the virus to kill the guy. Wouldn't that have been cool?
Right.
And they wouldn't know
That's what I thought, too, when they were like, it's skipping the non-critical areas. It's like, yeah, because there's a Drock guy with a remote control who's like steering it. But
how wild, by the way, that we got to see a Drock, right?
It's boring, though, right?
It sucked.
But he talks.
That sucked. That was one of my least favorite parts.
All right, I'm gonna mute myself again. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Alan.
I'm still upset about how the Drock were depicted in A Call to Arms, and this just reaffirmed the way that they're doing the Drock that bothers me. The Drock are supposed to be so patient. And so, like, it's fine. We've put our pieces here. They don't have to rush to intercept and blow things up because they know that Earth is going to die in a couple years. And they just got to chill until that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels weird that they're, like, rushing in trying to...
pew it up and just be like, we like shooting with our lasers and pew. It doesn't.
I didn't even know they had ships with lasers.
It makes sense in Babylon 5 season 4 when Delenn met them and they were like pirates because they still didn't know what they were going to do. They were still figuring out like, maybe we can screw over the Minbari, and that didn't work. And then they're like, the Centauri, we've almost forgot about them. So it's like that awkward teenage phase, but now they're in their grown-up phase where they're like, this is our plan. Why are they still acting like pirates? I don't know. It's just dumb.
Yeah, it just seemed weird.
Like this episode, I agree with you, Majan. In points, it has certain things. I think what works for me is when the characters are allowed to be friendly towards one another, like when they're allowed to be joking or allowed to be sincere. Like my favorite thing from this episode, and one of the few conversations that stuck with me after watching Crusade the first time, is that whole scene between Gideon and Matheson about remembering your father's face and remembering the Earth. So
I loved it.
That was so good. Oh my god!
And I can see the Earth clearly in my head if I close my eyes, but I can't recognize my father's face.
And Matheson's reasoning as to why we go through that is just like, oh wow, I've never thought about it like that before. Wow. And
then Gideon's response to him saying, "You're too young to have thoughts that old." It's great. Like it tells you how kind of cavalier Gideon is, but still being very perceptive and like affectionate towards Matheson. And I love their back and forth. There's
truly maybe the best relationship on this show, I think.
Yeah, there's such a deep camaraderie between them, and like a gentle ribbing back and forth. Like the part towards the beginning where Gideon is like, "Hey, I need you to check the personnel files of this dude," and Matheson's like, or he's like implying it, and Matheson's like, "Captain, are you saying that I should check his files? Like, you know that would be illegal." And Gideon's like, "I'm not saying you should check his file." And then Matheson is like, "He's 23 years old. He's from this place. He's a plumber." Like, I already looked into it and broke the law because I knew you'd want me to.
Yeah, I love their
really
relationship. I think it's great because we talk about in B5 and in Crusade it can be cheesy, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing, and their relationship can be very cheesy. Like, there's a bit near the end where Gideon's like, "Do this thing," and and then Matheson raises his eyebrow up and goes, "Aye, aye, sir," and you're like, that's very cheesy, but it's like, that's the kind of cheese I want instead of like, "Captain, are you watching a porno on your vid tape?" Or I don't want the corny that's like, "Dadgum, Captain, I am the Senate." Wink. Like, yeah, I don't want that. I don't want that.
I did love the senator's face, though. He had a cool face.
Senator Jacob Redway.
That's a great name. B5's usually good
in case you didn't realize that he was a Republican. His name is Jacob Redway.
Yeah.
Like, he's fantastic. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly shout out that guy.
He chews the scenery. It's real fun.
He's so good and you're like, okay, this is the guy that gets spaced in the end, right? Like, he's gonna get murdered. And even better, I think the show has such a great relationship to authority, in that all of the characters are like, ugh, senators, here we go. And that's reflected the moment he comes on the ship and he's like, man, yeah, the Excalibur's looking really good. Yeah, I'm so glad I voted for this project. And Gideon's like, "You voted against it." And he's like, "Don't talk back to your elders."
Yeah.
He specifically says, "Did your daddy never tell you to respect authority?" And you're like, jeez. Like,
no, he did not.
I agree. He was cheesy in a fun way, but it's just that thing of, it's like, it's again a systemic issue of Crusade. Of, it's like, it's exploring a lot of similar ideas to B5, but in a very immature and more ham-fisted way. This is the show that I see that when people tell me that they think Babylon 5 is silly and too obvious, I think of this, when I watch Crusade, I'm like, oh, this is what they see. This is what they see. Because it's like, we get it at JMS. You don't like authority and politicians. Like it's fun in this episode, but it's like a systemic thing of, it's like, yes, but I've seen you do this in a brilliant way before. And in this episode, he's like, "Dadgum, I said don't stop for no reason never. Gosh dang it, I am the authority here." And then Gideon's like, "Well, I won't listen to authority. I'll just follow the regs in my own way. Keep driving, Matheson."
Right. And then that's my thing. We're speaking of characters who I wish died instead of David, who didn't die. This guy could have died, but then there's a moment at the end where somebody comes up to him and they're like, you should get to safety because we can't have a dead senator on the ship." And he's like, yeah, you're right. I should definitely forget everything I was doing and go to not die. Like, he's just that rich guy who's like ultimately just out there to protect himself.
And
and Gideon making the great point early on that you do?
No, we never see him again.
Oh, of course not. No, of course not.
Goodbye.
He just wants to be there long enough to like be in charge of this. And
so
for some reason,
he did stuff?
Yeah, like, why is he in charge of this is a question. Like, why is this his scheme? But he just kind of wants to be in charge of it, and then as soon as things get hot, he's out of there.
Exactly.
I really like the line where they're bringing the life pod on board, and Matheson's kind of worried about it, and Gideon says, "Hey, I've never met a politician who would like risk his own life instead of sending in somebody else to do it for him. So if he's still here, we're fine."
Then it's not deadly. Yeah, if he's here, we're fine. Exactly. I love that.
Was a great line.
And it makes me think, and once we finish this show and like look into the scripts, we'll see where they plan for the series to go. But Crusade has this opportunity that Babylon 5 never really did, because it's a show about ambassadors who go on to form a new government that's led by them. It never has a chance to be like, what does anti-establishment actually look like? And Crusade gets to do that because every episode Gideon is like, I know what I was told to do, but my goal is to go against that in a way that doesn't get me in trouble. Which is great. I'm like, I want a show about that or about the idea of that, even if it's not involving Gideon.
Yeah.
Because they have this like smaller crew, smaller scale thing on their own mission. They can do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I haven't thought about it like that. When I think of B5, you're right. Like, they do that too, but they do it in a different sense. Like, how can we get our quarters rent-free? Like, that kind of story of anti-establishment.
Right.
Like, take that, trade unions, and stuff like that. It annoys me that Gary Cole pronounces it Excalibur. Very much. It very much annoys me that he pronounces it
Instead
as
of
two
Excalibur?
separate words. Excalibur. That's how he pronounces it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed that, but that's how he pronounces the name of the ship.
Excalibur, yes.
Excalibur, that's how he
After
pronounces
Gideon.
it. Yes, the Excalibur. I was like,
Gideon.
no, it's not two words.
Gideon. Matthew Gideon.
Matthew Gideon, Technomage.
Technomage.
There were no
that bothers me a lot more than Excalibur.
But at least like a Technomage is something he doesn't have to say every episode. But every episode he has to say Excalibur. Like,
yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, with this episode, you get like your B5 fill of like, oh, remember B5? There it is. It's physically on the screen, and I went bananas at that moment. I'm like, just go, please, just go. I want it. I want to go. That's what I was gonna say. Did it just make you just want to, like? That's my biggest problem with Crusade is anytime, even though Magellan, you said this is a positive thing, anytime it references Babylon 5, including this episode, it just makes me realize that I'm watching something really bad because B5 is so good in comparison.
Yeah.
And when you see like
every other time that's happened, I've felt that way. This episode, for the first time, I felt good about those Babylon 5 connections.
Yeah.
And everything with Matheson. Matheson is also the one spot where anytime I learn about like post telepath war stuff through his character, I think that's cool.
Yeah, he is good. Like, that act is great. Like, even though I didn't like Lost, I liked him in it. He was in Lost, yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. If you don't like Lost, you definitely like Daniel Day Kim in Lost because he is completely ruined in that show. Like, his character is just... Well, no, his ending is good, but regardless,
everyone's ending
he's not, like, important to the overall show.
Were there
any final notes? I do have notes on the ending scene, but anything else?
I'm just looking through my notes. I wrote down quite a few random... The senator kept winking, and it was very odd. I don't know why.
Yep.
I loved it.
Okay. There's just certain like technical things that I just go, why do they do this thing? Like, you guys have talked about the font choice in the opening credits, how it's that
you wouldn't download a car.
But what bothers me more is the font choice for when they have the actors and crew's names and how it looks like the like first default font choice that one has on an editing program. Just that white
like
text.
Arial or whatever, or Calibri.
I liked the fact that Gideon was a smartass and was like, I won't stop, I'll just keep going. I liked that scene. I don't know how you guys felt about that whole sequence where he just was like, I'll keep driving and swoop the ship inside.
That was awesome. Yeah. And he's like, you're just going to have to drive carefully. And Matheson's like, all right, Captain, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that was
How do you feel about the fact that the show has a little bit more cussing in it, like swearing? Like, he says, like, these guys are pissing me off. How does it feel to have your captains be a bit more upfront like that?
I think this show's trying to do the little, like, we talked early on about, like, it wants to be a horror show. It wants to be a little bit grittier, and that's just that. It's just, like, we're trying to do gritty, I think.
Yeah. I hate that they call them maint bots instead of just maintenance bots.
Hate it.
Daddy don't likey. No thank you. There's two scenes back to back in which the scene ends with, I don't want this on my conscience. It's like, we get it. This is an episode about worrying about ethics and morals. If the show did continue, I have to ask, would you be interested in seeing Lockley as a love interest?
Sure, why not?
Well, yeah, you make a good point that her and Gideon have like surprisingly good chemistry, but
yeah,
it's like decent. It's like decent. Like they're just both like complete messes, and I like that. As opposed to it would make a good contrast, I think, to the Delenn and Sheridan. Like we are both extremely in charge, and we know how to handle ourselves, and we clash over our ability to handle ourselves. Whereas this is like we are both just hanging onto a thread of like why we exist and why we stay alive, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the reservation I would have about it is, I think if that were to happen, it probably would happen in the context of Lockley like not getting any plots of her own, because they're never on B5, and so she would just kind of be in the show to be a love interest for Gideon, which would bother me. If there were a way to make it more organic and like create a reason for her to be with them, or for them to have to go to B5 a lot, and we like see plots that she leads and stuff that she does, I think I would like that.
That's true.
But
I think it could work because we knew that season 2 they were going to.
I think the two of them are fun in a scene together, so I wouldn't.
I think
that.
they could have done something because we knew that we know that the
For
show
sure.
is going to wrap up this whole play.
I was going to ask
plot.
though. Ryan, what would you want to see? Yeah.
What I want to see, yeah, like I think that knowing that the show is going to wrap up the plague plot, I think it opens up a whole bunch of avenues of them being able to interact with the B5 crew more with certain adventures and stuff. I reckon she could have been like in Star Trek. There are a lot of love interests that just come on like 2-3 times a season, and like they are like, oh, I have a job elsewhere, and then I'm coming back. Or even like a love interest that is so grand that they appeared in 2 episodes of a 7-season show. And I could see it just being like that, and I would be fine with that because that's something I have seen before in sci-fi. I reckon that could be good. Does it annoy you that with their uniforms they have a name tag? Because it annoys me so much.
Yes. Yep.
Me.
Every time I see him walk in and it says Gideon on his chest, I'm like, what is this?
Am I supposed to forget who he is? This is a black outfits out episode, by the way, not a gray outfit.
This is a gray outfit episode, this one.
Oh, no, it is a gray outfit. Sorry, I'm getting the two mixed up because we watched two.
Did you like hearing Franklin say, it's decompressing like a zip file?
Yes.
That's the next thing I was going to bring up in my notes. I was howling. I was like, excuse me.
My God.
Tragic, truly tragic that they still have
God.
zip files in 2267. Isn't that so sad?
Oh my God! In the X-Files parody episode, when he sees the picture of the blimp, and he's like, "That's a blimp. I've never seen one in real life, but I've read about it in the history books or something."
Yeah.
And yet we still have we don't have blimps, but we have zip files.
We have
Yep.
crystals by that point. Come on. I gotta ask, because I'm not watching this in the continuity you are. When they are referencing these nano machines and how the crew has encountered these,
We've seen that.
Have seen this? Okay, I just was like,
Yes.
is this a thing they've seen? Because this episode in the original air order was the last episode, so it makes sense no matter what context you watch it in. I must say, as a last episode of a season, it's fine. Like in the original airing order, it was fine. It's fine because it gives you that, hey, look, it's B5. Maybe we'll have adventures there in the next season kind of vibe.
Yeah, I was thinking that, and it kind of gives you a taste of the Drock Plague plot, where you can feel like they're moving towards understanding it, even if you don't see it resolved. So now I wonder if the other episode that's last is going to feel good being last or not.
And
appearances
there
and other
was a
Deceits.
thing I wanted to bring up with Sarah Chambers.
Truly don't know.
Since we don't
that part felt.
Go on. Sorry.
That part felt pretty good as a finale, but then like the last moment between Gideon and Matheson is absurd when he's like, life goes on, and then he's like, maybe we should go to Babylon 5, Matheson. What do you think? Just like a quick visit, we could use it, right? Life goes on, right? And then Matheson's like, indeed it does, Captain.
And he says it twice. Indeed it does.
Indeed.
He also has that's a scene in which it's like,
are you having sex?
It's like, hey, Captain, you're smiling. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. It's gas.
It's gas.
It's like,
what?
Should you believe me or my face? That's a question I ask myself every day. Should I believe me or my face?
Pretty good line.
I was going to say, with Sarah Chambers, we don't get much of her. What I do agree with Crusade is I like that it goes for darker elements. Like, you have your favorite character, Max, who's all mischievous and kind of like, I love greed and profit and whatnot. I wanted to see, like, there was that moment where the air vent thing failed in the chamber and she had to push the button. And I was waiting for that dark twist of, did she sabotage it so that she could do it? Or something to give her a twist or an angle or something to do in the episode other than she literally just goes, let me push this button.
I'll just do it. She's like, I'll just do it. It's fine. I'll take care of it.
Yeah, I guess the only point of it was to like have them both be complicit in
doing it,
in doing that to the guy.
But she seemed fine about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like she never had any quarrels about it. One of the things I will point out with that actress, she's in the Mortal Kombat movies, I do believe, or something. And one of the things you may notice, and I think it hampers it, is she's incredibly tall. She's like 6'1". And if you notice in this episode, they make sure when she's shot, she's always sitting down, or if she's standing, she's on the other side of the room or something, so that the actors that are standing next to her don't look really short. And I feel like in this episode, if you look at it, you can really see how it hampers her acting ability in scenes, because it's like she's not allowed to stand next to people, or it's like the way that they have to shoot around it, so it's not obvious that she's like towering over the guys, because that's a thing in acting. In movies where it's like guys need to always be taller than girls unless the point of the narrative is the girl is taller than the guy kind of thing. And you can kind of notice with her scenes that they're kind of hampered on a technical level because they're working around that she's incredibly tall. And it's just kind of like, this is also neutering whatever joy you could have in this character, because her performance is being muted by the fact that they don't want to show off how tall she is. It's a weird, and
she cannot be physical with a lot of other people. Yeah, it's a weird limitation.
And that's another limitation that this show put upon itself, as well as was put upon. It's just such an odd mixing of stupidity and weird stuff. It's just so odd, and I just wanted to point it out as like one of those like, did you guys notice it? And it's just a show. This episode, like, I agree, it has good points, but then there's dumb shit like Franklin's like, I need to get this door open, and you see the wide shot on the door's like 2 feet in the air.
You're taking all my notes, Ryan. You're taking all my notes. The lever opening the door is amazing.
And he has it like 2 feet in the air open. I'm like, just open it. And then he does a little jump, like an action jump away from the lights.
Yeah. Like a die-hard jump.
That didn't need to happen.
Why?
I was gonna say also. Oh, go ahead.
No. Just why did they do that? Like the guy he left would have been hit by the blast. He didn't have to jump. He was unconscious. So like Franklin's like, I need to save myself. I'll jump.
It kind of undermines the selfless action star stuff that he's doing in the rest of the scene.
Exactly.
Because then you think in that moment, like, wait a minute, why is he jumping away and leaving that guy to die?
Yeet, see ya, loser.
Yeet, see ya, loser. Yeah, it's like weird little things. Like, I hate that their communicators make a really obnoxious sci-fi noise when they are communicating, like that noise. It's like, it's really obnoxiously sci-fi.
I forgot to say in another episode, but they changed the door sound effect. And
illegal.
It sucks now. Yeah, it's bad now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they make all the worst decisions. Like, it's like, could we keep it in this good way? No, let's increase the CGI, the weakest aspect of P5. Let's increase the CGI use.
Yikes. I think the only remaining stray note I have is you mentioned that Margene Holden, the actress who plays Dr. Sarah Chambers, was in Mortal Kombat Annihilation as Shiva. And if you look her up in that movie, she looks ridiculous. Yeah. I've heard that movie's a hot trash fire. Yeah. Might be commentaryable since we liked the first one, but I've heard it's like legit bad, unlike the first one, which is legit perfect.
Funny bad.
Perfect.
The funny connection, though, the guy who plays our favorite senator is in that movie as well. I think he's just like an elder god or something.
Yeah.
But then he also is a Klingon in Star Trek The Next Generation, which I sent a picture of him to both of you.
I was like, who is this? Why am I looking at a Klingon?
Yeah, sorry. I sent it like as foreshadowing. Like someday you'll know.
Someday you'll know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear?
That's the senator.
There's a weird IMDb trivia fact about this episode that's very macabre and depressing. Would you like to hear it?
Sure. Yeah.
IMDb is very odd. I don't know who makes these trivia points, but they're very tasteless. And this is one: the Druk Plague, will take effect in 5 years, and humanity will die. Oddly enough, Richard Biggs died within 5 years of filming this episode. What the fuck is this?
Oh, that sucks.
Why are you like this?
I just like 14 out of 18 people found this useful or something. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's nice enough to just say this is his final performance as Stephen Franklin. That's enough. You don't need to rub it in the wounds and just be like, here it is. Do you get it? Damn. Do you get this weird reference here?
That super stinks.
You guys have talked about on the show how bad the music was, but until I had to rewatch it, I really didn't notice how bad the music was. I didn't remember it, and I found like even in that father's face scene, I was distracted by the music. It's like the music is telling you everything, and I'm like, I missed the scenes in B5 where there was no music, and scenes just played out.
Mm-hmm. Right, or at least if there was, like, you never consciously noticed it or thought about it.
Yeah.
No music is as effective as using good music in certain places. Like there were definitely moments in this episode where I'm like, if you just made the music quiet and let me enjoy like the tension of this, I would have been way more into it. But instead, there's like always this bad undercurrent.
Yeah,
of music.
or why in the scene where they're talking about fathers does a piano riff play where it sounds like in a jazz club in Berlin in the 30s? Like I don't know why that is.
Very specific. But yeah,
I don't know. This episode was a mixed bag. It had some great stuff, had some
Indeed.
bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I still think I stand behind it being good. My experience of it was that it was very good.
Is it because it had no
I would put it
techno
Yes, yes. On the curve of Crusade, it was very good.
Yeah, it's like you're working on a completely different curve, and I think that's what we got for Each Night I Dream of Home. Ryan, this was wonderful. Do you have any plugs? I know we want people to check out the Spin Polish Presents podcast where you watch movies with your friend Bartek.
Yeah.
We would love to be on that show soon once our schedules stabilize at all in the slightest.
Stabilize him. Yeah, like you're in need of medicine. Stabilize the chat schedule.
I need stabilization.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I've been watching a TV show called Soap.
Ooh.
From the 1970s. It's a
Oh.
satire on television soap operas. It's a show that inspired a lot of other shows, like Arrested Development got a ton from it. It's that show in which they have like the narrator of the show is the guy who is the voice on The Price is Right, and it's very funny. Billy Crystal's first ever acting role. And it's a very significantly important TV show in several ways. It's got a lot of interesting things. So, it's a very funny show, but it's also very dramatic. It has the character of Benson, the butler, who later had his own show, Benson, and it was like the first ever time a black actor had ever won an Emmy. Was from Soap. It's a very good show. So, like, the pitch of it is, it's like these two families. You have the Tates and you have the Campbells, and the Tates are very, very rich, but they're not as rich as how many secrets they have. And then the Campbells, they're poor, but they have almost as many secrets as the Tates. And it's like, you have like one family has a son that's a gangster who finds out the stepdad murdered his dad, so he's going to have to whack him for the mob. And then the other family is like, you have the philandering husband who's cheating on the wife, but she's too oblivious to know that, and all this stuff. But what it's mainly remembered for is it's one of the first TV shows in America to have an openly gay character and represented positively, with Billy Crystal's character, who's called Jody. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's the 70s, so it's interesting to watch it as how they handle the kind of gay character kind of stuff. Like, sometimes they handle it really well, sometimes they have some interesting missteps, but never anything malicious. And anytime there is like gay jokes, it's the typical, it's at the expense of the bigot, not the person who's actually getting the insults thrown at them. And Billy Crystal's like openly gay and openly proud, and he's very confident and but also very confused as well. And that's kind of what it's remembered for primarily. So I've been watching that, and it's one of those shows that when you watch it, the first few episodes, it's all fun and games, and everyone's having a fun time. And then it's like one of those shows where it's like, oh no, I'm gonna cry. Stuff gets real.
Yeah.
But then it's also like, but then later we'll have aliens in it, like, because it's like a soap opera. You crank up the insanity of it, and I've been watching that over the holiday break. I got that for Christmas, and it's a very interesting show. I don't know where one can find it. I got it on DVD very easily. It's an American show, so I imagine in America you could find it easily. It was a mainstream show, but yeah, it's funny. You watch it, it's like there's a character in the show who's a ventriloquist who has a dummy, and it's very reminiscent of an Arrested Development. A certain character copes by having a dummy talk for them.
Right.
And it's like very interesting show. It's worth watching for like how it tackles these kind of kind of taboo issues of the time, and still that is some taboo today. It deals with gender identity as well, and lots of racism and sexism and
Gender, you
classism.
say?
Yeah, it's gender, you say? Yes. Yeah, it kind of deals with that. Kind of interesting kind of politics involved, and it's also genuinely funny. Genuinely a funny show. It's one of those shows in which it's like, hey, and it's actually funny as well as it being an interesting look into the past and how things have changed in the landscape of art and media for the best or for the worst. And it's also just really funny to see Billy Crystal in really young and in his first ever acting role. And it was like, hey, this guy could have killed his career. He was a successful stand-up, and then he went on to be a proud gay man on TV. That really could have tanked his career. But in fact, we know Billy Crystal today is one of those big comedy stars who hosts the Oscars. So I've been watching that. Very interesting show. Worth a watch.
Very cool. It looks like Soap is about $18 for the whole series on Amazon if you just want to buy it. So that's very reasonable.
Yeah.
Someone just wants to put that under their belt, under TV Canon. I think it's worth talking about.
I would say it's something you could do on your pilot chats, except for it's the first episode. It's really good, but Billy Crystal literally has 2 lines in it because it's one of those kind of shows where it's
the stuff that's good about it is not in the first episode.
Well, yeah,
right,
Billy Crystal, because it's a show with 18 main characters, so not every character gets their moment in the first episode. But yeah, it's worth a watch.
Indeed.
And
fair
glad
enough
that it's available to find.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us again on Chats. We always love to have you here, and we hope that you'll join us again and we can join you on your show sometime soon. Magellan, let's take it to a brief musical break, and then the two of us will be right back to discuss Patterns of the Soul.
Pow pow.
Hey everyone, it's time for the email segment. Whoa, we haven't done a cut-in email segment in a hot minute. Hi, Magellan.
Hey, I've got a bigger beard now.
Wow.
And I'm
Since
old.
The last... Oh, yeah. I'm
30
old.
years older.
Yikes.
You thought I was going to say 30 years old and think that that's old. It's not. 30's young. 30 years older, that would be old.
I'd say 90% of our listener base is over 30 anyways, so let's not criticize the crowd. Okay, you're allowed to be 30. You're valid.
It's fine. And I'm not doing an ironic thing.
No, neither am I. We don't do ironic things here on Chats.
No, we're sincere to the bone.
We do read emails, and sometimes we fall behind on emails, so we're catching up today.
Let's do it.
We have an email from Stefan. Hi, Stefan. He says, I think my daughter is trying to tell me something. Such an ominous subject line. He says, my daughter left my stuff on her potty stool. She was quite proud of it. Clearly there is a message here. And she apparently lined up all 5 seasons of Babylon 5 over... Let me look at this image. Which Star Trek is that?
Star Trek, the motion picture DVD collection. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And these are Babylon 5 DVDs? Is that what I'm looking at? Yeah.
They all have the big 5 on the side.
That's our big 5. We love that big 5.
Yeah, everyone's favorite 5.
Those are nice DVDs. The scale was confusing to me. And for a second, I thought they were the card game. But
right. Yeah.
DVDs.
So either she thinks these are toilet trash, or she thinks they rise above the Star Trek motion pictures. Ultimately.
Yeah, she's doing a ranking of the seasons right now. Yeah. So Point of No Return is the best. What's that? Season 4?
Yes.
That seems right. I can't read the rest, but your daughter has a very sophisticated critical understanding of Babylon 5.
If people are giant brained out there, from the top it's green, blue, orange, red, pink, and then Star Trek: The Motion Picture Collection. And he says, on another note, this Crusade rewatch in JMS order is going well. The episodes in the red uniforms are clearly better than I remember. I had read online that these were the episodes made before the network interfered. Yeah, that definitely shows. You feel like there are some episodes that are very JMS, very Babylon 5, and then you feel like there are some that are just, we had to do a really bog standard episode. And sometimes you can tell by the outfits. So that's a good observation, Stefan.
Yeah.
I want to read. We got 2 Dan mails. We're backed up on Dan mails.
Mamma mia. All right. I'll read this first one. This one is just titled Crusade. And Dan says, when most people started watching Crusade, they probably thought, why is Lumbergh the captain? While most people knew Gary Cole from Office Space, he had made a bigger impression on me on a short-lived TV series called American Gothic that was pre-Office Space. In the former, he played a local sheriff named Lucas Buck, and the character was dark and evil and had some deep connection to the supernatural. When I saw him in the latter doing his okay, I couldn't wrap my mind. Is that how he does it, or did I do an okay? I think I did an okay from something else.
Okay. That's the way it is now.
I think that's
Office Space in a minute.
I think that's from something, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I couldn't wrap my mind around Lucas Buck being freaking Lumbergh. I can understand why Crusade viewers would have mostly first gone to Office Space since it just come out that February. Oh, weird. And this show then premiered in June, while American Gothic was from 1995. So I didn't even know they were that close chronologically.
Dang.
That makes it even stranger. A series of Babylon 5 books now known collectively as the Technomage trilogy actually tell a bit of Galen's story, including the time that he had with Isabel. Spoilers for the books here, so read on at your own peril, right? We're fine?
Yeah.
For book spoilers? But Galen then goes on to undercut certain events of the Babylon 5 story by being inserted into the background of those events without it being shown on the original show. In short, Galen had gone to Zahadum while tracking rogue technomages, was there when Sheridan and Anna landed, was confronting Morden while Sheridan was being backed to the edge of the chasm, deactivated the planetary shield so that the White Star could crash into the planet, saved Morden, met Lorien, and learned that Sheridan had survived. The books are a real trip sometimes. Yeah, so Galen's Forrest Gumping all through.
I was going to say, nothing beats a book-exclusive character moment than, like, hey, he was there all the time. Star Wars says hello. And every Star Wars Extended Universe book says hello. Or, excuse me, what are they called? Legacies now? The, like, non-canon Star Wars?
I don't know.
No one cares. It's all canon to me.
I think it's called Legacy, yeah. Something like that.
But thank you, Dan. Yeah, the only thing I know about American Gothic, the TV show, not the painting, but the TV show, is that Gary Cole played Lucas Black's father in that show. They're like the two main guys. Lucas Black went on to be the main character in one of the best films of the 2000s, the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Thank you. That movie's a work of art.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dan. We got another email from someone named Dan. This one's recent. This is regarding our most recent discussion of the last two episodes of Crusade. It's titled Crusade/X-Files.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I find myself fascinated by your occasional gaps in pop culture experience. So do we, Dan. So do we. Like somehow you know the B-side songs from the 1998 Bare Naked Ladies album Stunt, and possibly songs from the 1992 album Gordon, but you somehow missed the X-Files.
Dan, don't insult me by saying that I possibly know songs from their 1992 album Gordon, which of course opens with Hello City. The one, of course I know that's on there. Of course I know Grade 9. Okay, and Be My Yoko Ono. Of course I know Wrap Your Arms Around Me and The Flag. I know the deep cuts of Gordon, Dan.
Magellan's going to name his first child Gordon. Dan goes on, speaking of odd references.
Gordon Fluke. Not good. Not a good name.
But think about it. We'll think about it. You have a couple years. Just a few years.
I'd rather name my kid Stunt.
Oh, Stunt Fluke.
Stunt Fluke, yes.
Are you okay having your last name on here?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't care.
Okay, thanks. Speaking of odd references, Magellan made one a few episodes back about a weird episodic time travel show that he saw on the Sci-Fi channel and didn't really know what it was aside from getting a few basic points somewhat right. I want to fill that knowledge gap by letting you know that the show in question was called 7 Days.
Oh, I've been freed from the curse. Dan, thank you.
You texted me when we got this email saying Dan finding the show that I was thinking of is the reason we podcast.
Yep.
Now, if someone can find the person that Magellan was thinking of in Escape Chats...
No. Let me have this moment of freedom. Oh, God.
No, you're trapped again.
No, the prison is returned. But now I can go watch 7 Days somewhere. That's
for sure.
exciting.
We'll pilot it, maybe.
Let's pilot. Yeah, why not?
The premise was that the Roswell flying saucer crash actually happened, and from the tech that the government scavenged from it, they were able to create time travel. But for sci-fi reasons, they could only send one person back in time 7 days. That's dumb, dude.
Mm-hmm.
In a plot point that probably wouldn't fly these days, the guy traveling back in time, played by Jonathan LaPaglia, brother of Frank LaPaglia. What do I know that name from? Here we go.
I don't know, but it's familiar to me too.
Anthony LaPaglia. I don't know who either of these people are, but they sound familiar. This guy won the job of time travel because he was a former soldier who had been driven crazy from being captured and tortured by enemy combatants. To be able to successfully pilot the module, the pilot had to be crazy enough to accept that he or she has traveled through time while also having a high pain tolerance to be able to pilot through it. The show was weird and fun and probably could not be made today. It also starred Don Franklin, who also had a role in the show that Nick mentioned in the last episode, Sequest DSV. Seriously, is there anything more satisfying than Dan just being like, here's every stray thought you ever thought about in the answer to it and all your solutions in life? I appreciate
this. This is all I needed. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. He says Nick also made a reference to an X-Files episode where the alien conspiracy, somewhat like the one from Crusade, included humans pretending to be aliens and possibly being abducted by real aliens. The X-Files episode in question is called Jose Chung's From Outer Space. It's a bananas Rashomon-like episode that includes things like a foul-mouthed police officer who says things like bleep and bloop instead of actual foul words, Jesse Ventura, and Alex motherfucking Trebek playing Men in Black.
Oh my God.
Magellan's King.
Wow.
Lord.
Wow.
I like the italics on motherfucking because Dan knows that the two people that Magellan holds up in the church of his life are Penn Jillette and Alex Trebek.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the church.
I wonder if they've met. Did Penn Jillette do Celebrity Jeopardy?
He has to. He's like exactly in the like
Penn Jillette. This is gonna be Celebrity. He did the Celebrity Apprentice.
Penn Jillette, Celebrity Jeopardy. No, he totally did.
Oh, nice. Memorable moments, 2-minute clip. Let me open that and just have that in the background. I'll watch that in a minute.
Fabulous. Great. Alex Trebek playing Men in Black agents. It's bizarre and ridiculous. It's from season 3, which I would argue is peak X-Files. I've actually heard of Jose Chung's. That's like the episode people always reference when they're like the best episode of the X-Files. But he goes on with some less cool news. On that note, I don't think I could listen to you guys doing a podcast about the X-Files. I was a huge fan of the show back in the day, and I'd probably like hearing you discuss those first few seasons, but the show gets bad. Like, so bad that the terrible last few have since poisoned my love of the early seasons.
Whoa.
And then both David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson leave the show at some point.
Oh my God.
And you realize how much of it was actually on their shoulders and how it doesn't work without them, and it's painful to watch. When the X-Files gets bad, it gets painfully bad, like not even worth critiquing bad. Which is really tragic. But again, makes me think, if you heard that discussion, folks, maybe we just watch like a certain amount of the X-Files and pick a stopping point. Something you need to think about in the future. But I appreciate Dan's infinite wisdom about the show. And as a small side note, he concludes, while the X-Files did have the spin-off show The Lone Gunman, it also had what I would call a sister show, because while the show didn't spawn directly from the X-Files, it did happen in the same universe. It was called Millennium, and it starred Lance Hendrickson playing former FBI agent Frank Black as he worked for a shadowy group of powerful individuals, solving bizarre crimes and mysteries. Because the show was canceled before the plot threads got wrapped up, Frank Black popped up in an episode of the X-Files so that Millennium could tie up those threads. In my reading about the X-Files, man, I heard about this Millennium thing, and I was like, what? Is this not a spin-off? Like, what is this? So it's nice to have that clarification.
Yeah, that helps.
And again, I know The Lone Gunman is mostly famous, at least nowadays, is one of the shows that helps propel Vince Gilligan to be able to do Breaking Bad. So there you go.
You know what? Today I heard that Breaking Bad is about white fragility.
Oh, boy. Oh, man.
Did you just say, oh, Moya?
I think I did. I think I unconsciously did.
Did you just say, oh, Moya?
Oh, Moya.
Moya. Bad news. I have no idea where I can stream 7 days.
Bad news. I can point you to some websites if you just want to do that.
7 days. I found the Wikipedia page for it. All right.
So it does exist.
We'll figure it out.
Thank God. Thank God.
Thank God. It's on DVD on Amazon. I mean, I might as well, right?
You really might as well. Wait, no, don't. Wait, no, what? You silly man. You're always looking for trouble, I swear.
I'm a troublesome guy.
That's true. That's what they say about you. And what I say is that it's time for us to take a brief musical break as we get back to discuss patterns of the soul.
Bye. Welcome back to Chatzylon 5 Presents Crusade Chats. Alan, hey, you're still here.
Hello!
What's up?
Chicken butt.
The second episode we watched this week was Patterns of the Soul, which is JMS Order Episode 8, Broadcast Episode 5. It's on Disc 2 if you've got the DVD box set. It was written by Fiona Avery, directed by Tony Dow, aired July 7th, 1999, and takes place in June of 2267. Alan, what happened in Patterns of the Soul?
Well, Magellan, I'm glad you asked. In Patterns of the Soul, is the Drock Plague spreading? A journey to Theta 49 confirms Earth Command's fear that the planet's colonists carry the incubating virus. Another alarming discovery awaits. Theta's inhabitants were deliberately contaminated. Magellan, Patterns of the Soul is a pretty cool episode.
Okay, tell me why you think that.
all things said.
I'm back to being the negative guy, by the way. I sort of had a brief vacation as being the lover and not the fighter on chats last episode, and I'm ready to go back to my fighting roots.
I'm the Joker.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah. It's a strange episode because it's also weird coming off of the last one that's also about somebody deliberately taking on the plague, but the circumstances are completely different because this is a colony of people who were basically fed the plague as opposed to choosing to take it. But they were fed it by corporations and the government. So once again, this is a show that is staking its claim in this idea that, like, yes, the government and those people are like the reason that the plague is not getting cured. They are fighting against their own people, evil government, all that stuff. It's great. I like that stuff. And I like that Gideon supports these people by the end. But yeah, overall, I think this is also one of the better ensemble episodes of the show. We don't really ever get like every single person on the episode, but we got some good Mac stuff. We got Darina, we got Gideon, Matheson, a little bit of Chambers. All we missed is Galen, really. And
I didn't really miss him. I mean, I love Galen, but he always brings the weird parts of Crusade.
For sure. And this is a weird episode, but I think what works about it too is that it kind of like doesn't stretch too far, despite partially being an off-planet episode. Yeah,
that's true.
Effects-wise and cast-wise.
Yeah, because it's just a cave, right? That's
right.
all we really see.
It's a cave and then like a nearby like cliff outcropping.
Yeah, they don't try to do like these are abandoned skyscrapers, and we're gonna walk across the light bridge or fly around on our sky bikes or whatever.
Never gonna forget the light bridge scene. God dang.
Goodness gracious, yeah. The moment where Crusade became Mirror's Edge.
Too much. So the first episode started with Gideon playing with cards, which I only remark upon because we've seen playing cards in the show, and those were different. These were just like regular, bicycle.
I was bummed out. Yep.
I'm like, where are the cool? You pick one. If he's gonna have bicycle cards, that's cool as like a little like kitschy thing of him to have. But he also had really cool like diagonal cards before. In this one, he's sitting by his really cool chess set. As an angry man from the government is telling him that they need to get the people off of the planet Theta 49.
Yeah.
Lots of authority yelling at people in this. Max, the king, the Lord himself.
We finally get the Max B plot sort of that I sort of wanted.
Sort of.
That is hinting at like the Max episodes that I really want that probably don't exist. Where we get to see someone breathing down his neck and scolding him that in a way that sets him up to have an arc. Because this IPX person is like profit margins. You got to find stuff. We got to, you've got to make money for the corporation.
Go to a planet that's going to make you money. Don't let them distract you from the mission. And I want results.
Mm-hmm. And then so he goes to Gideon and he says, "Hey, why aren't we going to the place where I could have gotten a bunch of money?" You wrote in your notes that he says a veritable gold mine, which is a very Max phrase.
I feel like he says it every time we see him. He's like, it was a veritable gold mine.
Yeah. And he has this, I don't remember when in the episode it is, but I kind of just want to talk about all the Max stuff first.
Yeah.
He has this exchange with Gideon where they're talking about like the idea of right and wrong, and what Max is saying is that the problem that Gideon has is that he has to make like moral choices. And Max says, the original sin of Adam and Eve was learning the knowledge of what is good and what is evil. And that's like a twisted, interesting way to think about it. Mm-hmm. And so what he's saying is like being a part of the corporation is the corporation sometimes it's too much where he says the corporation sees all, it knows all, the corporation is my big dad and I love it. But he makes this interesting point that being a member of a corporation allows you to dissociate yourself from moral responsibility because stuff can be going on in other parts of the company and you're like, well, I didn't know. Who's I to know? Somebody else was doing that. Or if you do something wrong, you can say like, well, it wasn't my fault.
I was following orders.
Following orders. Yeah, it's kind of a version of that. And he has such an awareness of the fact that he's morally bankrupt that it makes you think that maybe he feels guilty about it. That there's a part of him that is overcompensating for the ways that he's sort of insecure about having sold out to corporate entities. That's making him talk about like corporations are so great, don't you know? Corporations are the future. And we see that finally in the end of the episode. I'm just gonna zoom to it, where the one of the big things we uncover is that the last of Darina's race is on the planet, which we'll talk about that whole part of the plot. And Max learns about it, and he has a choice to make. He goes to Chambers and is like, "Wow, why didn't you tell me? And we have a responsibility, and I would have made money." She tells him that he has a wallet where his heart should be.
Hell yeah.
Which is great. And then he's doing his log at the end, and he's saying, "Oh, by the way, there's a alien race here that we should investigate." And then the computer's like, "Great, you did it. Are you going to save it or delete it?"
And BioWare moral choice appears.
Yeah, he slowly moves his fingers towards the blue side of the moral spectrum and hits delete, and then re-records and says, there's nothing here. So we finally get this glimpse of like Max. It could be good. I love it.
Well, it's from the perspective of the show, it's unfortunate because that more seasons would have given us like Max going against the company and like probably leaving IPX, and because what we're learning is, like you said, he's this like greedy capitalist not because of his own inherent desire for wealth, I guess, but more that he has this fear that he's trapped in the system and he wants to get out of it. Like, you don't choose to take on a mission like this because this is going to maximize profit. You are put here by a system and by a corporation that sees an opportunity to exploit people and exploit populations and say, well, if they're going to look for cures, you might as well look for money and things that are profitable.
Yeah. It seems like it's partly self-preservation and partly being so scared of the Drakh plague that he's running away from any kind of responsibility whatsoever. and just saying, yeah, screw it, I'm going to be a greedy guy because that's all that matters anyway, when probably in his heart of hearts, he cares about doing the right thing and he cares about people, but he's sort of denied that for so long that he believes the story that he tells himself.
And it's not only it's him believing it, and it's him posturing that he is this kind of person. It gives this sort of like re-examination to all of his previous scenes where you think, oh, maybe Max is just like doing this to convince himself. Like maybe he makes jokes about Chaucer being amazing and Canterbury Tales being like the book that he happens to be reading because he's like, I'm that guy. I need to be that guy in order for this plan to work. I did think it was super funny that he was reading Canterbury Tales because that's also like it's Crusade, you guys.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to think what's the significance of him reading Canterbury Tales, but it is like the medieval thing, and like we're going on an adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to look for a list of characters in Canterbury Tales to see who's who. It
was like the nerd. Yeah,
I'm doing the thing that Marcus Cole did in that 1B5 episode of like, oh, who's King Arthur?
Which one's King Arthur?
Yeah. Yeah, I also enjoyed the exchange with Gideon where he's like, another genius, and Gideon's like, well, come on, I'm not a genius.
Come on, stop.
And Max is like, I wasn't talking about you.
You big dummy.
I'm talking about myself.
Yeah, and he isn't on the planet at all, but Max's plotline feels really good, and it also like gives good depth to Darina.
By the way, Max is the pardoner.
There you go. Ooh. The other connection that I don't know if this is intentional, but to the Canterbury Tales is that the Canterbury Tales is also like nobody knows what the correct order of it is or how it was supposed to be finished.
Oh my God, you're right.
Isn't that amazing? I thought about that when I was like reading about it. I was like, wait, whoa.
Oh my God, you're right.
The Crusade is unintentionally just Canterbury Tales.
Wow.
It's like, wait, we like assembled. Everyone has like a different version of like what's the order that this book was supposed to be, and like what's the actual.
Oh my
plot.
God, you're literally blowing my mind right now.
I had this realization that I'm like now remembering earlier today when I was reading about it, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's like all the characters, and they all fill a role, and the writer is like regarded as being really good when he's actually like kind of he makes a lot of like messy mistakes.
God, you're so smart.
Thank you. And it came out in the wrong order. Yeah, it's all there. So
wow. Crusade is the Canterbury Tales of television.
Exactly. And
did it.
And Tolstoy is the Tolstoy of the Zulus. Thank you, everyone. This has been the last episode of Chatzylon.
You didn't know the end was coming so soon. We've been canceled.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Unceremoniously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked that he did that, and I was saying that him like talking to Darina and threatening to tell the secret of her people, and her just being like, you have a wallet where your heart should be. Really it makes me like Darina more. She's really good in this episode.
No, it's Chambers who says that to him.
Oh no, Chambers says that. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh no, because he's talking to he's threatening to. Yes.
He doesn't talk to Darina about it.
The part that made me like Darina was when she was talking to Gideon and some other people, and was like, what's the difference between like rats and, because he was like, oh, I don't trust Chambers is like nanotech masks because she's only used them on rats, and then Darina's like, the only difference between like finding the difference between rats and captains of ships is gonna take us years. I'm like, whoa. What a badass.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about Darina and her people.
Pretty big moment, right?
Yeah, how does this even happen? She's just wandering around and like runs into someone?
Dude, once again, it just feels like the way that they set up Darina plots is like they got on the planet, they didn't tell her to do anything, and she just was like, all right, I'm going to go climb shit. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
She's climbing some cliffs, and she gets to the top of one, and she's like, ooh, I found something, and it's not the actual 30 people. It's like another group of people who sort of resemble her and are wearing similar outfits and look very worn out and tired. They are set up early on, like before I think the cold open, where there's a grizzled man from that community who's talking about how he rolled the stones to determine the truth, and the other people led by Mr. Black are going to like lead to the death of his people. He's like, go now, I must die. Take away your people so that I may live. And you're like, that's really weird, but that turns out to be one of the people from Darina's race who survived on this on Theta 49.
Yeah. It's so convenient. The whole time it was happening, I was like, "Where's the twist?"
Right. The twist is that it's a B plot. It's like we can talk more about this later, but it's like the show would have talked more about this later, but it kind of just boils down to.
I just find it annoying that it just happened. That she thought she was the only one, and then they just so happen to go to the planet where there are other members of her race.
It leads to them smooshing together two plots too.
And it's not the A plot.
Yeah.
And this is like the biggest deal for Darina ever.
Yeah.
Because her whole character motivation is that she wants to take revenge on the Drakh because the Shadows destroyed her planet. And this is fundamentally altering like what her whole character is about. And it just happens by chance. Like she hasn't been looking for them at all.
She didn't expect to be looking for them too.
Yeah, it's just weird.
And she finds them and she begs Chambers, who finds out that they're also there, to not tell anyone because they're going to ask them to leave or something. And not cure the virus, and she also makes her promise to, if she finds a cure, to use it on them immediately, because they're all infected and they're not going to survive even as long as Earthlings, because somebody tells her later, or I think Chambers tells her, like, I will look for the cure, but they have a year, whereas Earth has 5 years. They have a year because the virus works faster through them, which is very sad. But then it's like, yeah, where were you planning to go with that, JMS and company? Because a year gives you like a season, realistically, to answer that question.
Right.
Because I know they said they wanted to have the Drakh Plague thing figured out by the end of this season, or by like mid-season 2, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that would have gone, but it's just one of those like lost plot threads, I guess.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what comes next. I wish there was just a summary of what was supposed to happen.
Like all
so
of
that
it,
I could
yeah.
have these questions answered.
Yeah, because we get the rest of the season in the script, or like the rest of what the season was going to be in the script. But
yeah,
we don't get the 5-year arc.
Mm-hmm.
It was really great in Becoming Superman, listening to JMS talk about how like nobody gets 5-year arcs in TV. They don't allow you to do that. That doesn't like make sense. At least at the time, because you're convincing people to like give you all that money and time and actors for that many years, and it's just unfathomable. And he was like, we managed to make it happen. Like B5 is a miracle. Crusade is a more realistic portrait of like what TV production is like when you are working under a network. Right. So the first guy we learn about from the colony of 30 people, who, this is the A plot of the episode. This is the really good stuff. The first dude we learn about is a really silly actor. We learn later this character's name is Tim Guy. Tim, he's a guy named Tim. He's saying that the only reason Earth wants him to come back is because they're an embarrassment, and we don't really understand what that's about at the time, but we learn that he's not the leader. It's this guy, Robert Black, who is the grizzled man who spoke to the old guy from Darina's race at the beginning of the episode. Robert Black is handsome, is the thing.
Robert Black is the white guy?
Yeah, that's yep. So Tim's the black guy, Robert Black is the white guy, yep.
Yeah. So he's like, wow, this is a mountain of a man, and he's very handsome.
Yep.
It was disarming.
And it's like, is he gonna get shirtless? The whole time I'm like, what are we, like, why did you get such a like sexy?
He does, right?
I believe he does, because he's doing the getting the shots or whatever.
I had to take a drink of water thinking about that.
He is a tall drink of water.
He is.
But yeah, Tim is basically like, don't listen to them, and then Robert's just like, you don't know the whole story. If any of us has the plague, we have to go somewhere and get it figured out.
He's so reasonable.
Right. He's just a good leader. Who would have thunk it? Like, it's customary in shows like this, and in something like B5, where you go onto a planet and the leader is like, no, you'll never, like, Tim seems like he would be the leader, being like, you guys are all lying to us, you're evil, we're not going anywhere because we're stubborn. What we learn later is that not only is Robert Black the level-headed one, but he has a very good reason to still be hesitant of authority. And everyone does, because this plot goes cybernetic. Gideon, while everything else is happening, is doing a search for Robert Black in the Earth Force records. Really love that Gideon's primary contribution to the plot happens with him putting his feet up in his computer room, just like Googling things. Like, as a captain, his most successful trait here is he has a good Google encyclopedia because of his connections. It turns out the name Robert Black is behind ultraviolet restricted clearance. He uses the username Benedict, the password Sharks, and then it's like, all right, secondary password, and he says it's anti-up, which completely baffles me until the end of the episode, and then they just real quickly are like, here's why my password is this.
I thought that was a pretty cool plot thread.
Yeah.
About when he's talking to Dorina about how he gets his information. Because it adds, I mean, it's kind of on the nose because Gideon says, I'm kind of an eccentric guy, huh?
Yeah.
But it does add a layer of to his eccentricity, that he just kind of has access to stuff he shouldn't have access to, and he gambles and cheats and doesn't really care about cheating and palming cards and stuff.
Right. He tells Dorina, like, the thing about me is that I work with, like, the underdogs, and, like, I know people like you, Dorina, who aren't, like, respected by the rest of society, and I, like, get my data from them and work with them.
Yeah.
So it's like he's such a good contrast again to, like, the cast of B5. I mean, like, no, I know what normal people are like, and I like steal things, and that's how I get my data, and that's what makes me a good captain. Is that I know what the average person is like.
I love it. I'm into it.
For sure, me too. The wrinkle in the plan, like I said, Chambers discovering that the people were not actually infected before they left, because the idea is that they left Earth right as the plague was happening, but their food was, and they trace it back. We get Chambers on the planet, and their food is coming from
more poop stuff.
Yeah, more poop stuff. I've never seen a sci-fi show reference poop this many times.
Yeah.
The food is coming from the Crusade Corporation, which is the name that keeps coming up when she's doing, like, searches for all this stuff. And then we learn the reveal. The way we learn the reveal of what's going on with these guys and why the Crusade Corporation wants them contaminated is bananas.
Yep.
So, Dorina is like, Chambers, you can't tell anybody. And she's like, okay, I'll think about it. Chambers is leaving. Tim comes up behind her, and it's like nighttime, and he, like, grabs her, and she's like, oh my God. And he's like, my cybernetic arms are the reason that I can hold you back. And
yeah, I was, full transparency, I was watching this on my phone walking around the Barnes & Noble, and I was like, whoa, what is going on? This guy's running around like the Flash, and now he's talking about how his arms don't have pressure sensors, so he might crush her by accident.
He starts to choke her.
What show did I slip into by accident?
Yeah, it's the good kind of 90s cheese, too, because there's no visual indicator that he has cyber enhancements. He's just saying it.
Yeah.
Which is great. He's choking her, and she calls Matheson. And I love that Matheson doesn't suspect anything is up, because she's like, Matheson, you need to... And he's like, what? And then she's being choked, and she's like, you need to send a ship. Sorry, wrong number. Ooh, my bad. Anyways, bye.
He's like, huh, okay, totally normal.
This is not weird. We get the reveal. Basically, Robert Black just dumps all of the exposition on Gideon, saying that he was in the Battle of the Line. Remember, guys? That made me happy. That's the Babylon 5 connection I like to hear. He was transferred to the bioweapons division, and he was used as he was cybernetically enhanced, and so were all of these people that he's with. And the government wanted to use them, and they didn't want to be used, so they escaped, and now the government is getting rid of them, because if they can't have them, nobody can. That's why they poisoned the food, so that they could wash their hands of this problem. I like that Gideon finds this out, too, by being like, also cross-reference it with General Thompson. Like, their boss has to be in on it. The guy who's running this has to be in on it, because he's leading this. You were saying, you made a really good point that this, like, crew of, like, cybernetically enhanced people escape, like, running from the government across the galaxy is, like, a really good role-playing game plot, or, like, a good RPG party.
Yeah, I was watching this, and I was like, whoa, that's actually kind of a cool premise for a group of PCs, that they're, like, cybernetically enhanced fugitive former soldiers from this failed project. Because like then you get this guy has super speed, and he was super handsome leader was talking about someone who has like night vision or something. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's just Cyborg 009, which we covered in Pilot Chats episode 9.
Yeah,
check it out,
episode 009.
But this would be a great, if you were a GM who was running two different parties. One of them was like the Crusade crew, and the other one was like another group of friends who were doing the space cyborg thing, and then you brought them together for one session. That's what this feels like. Yeah,
it's a really cool idea. And I just love.
And this is the last session that the guy who plays Tim gets to come to.
Yeah, after
this, because he totally goes full villain.
Yep, absolutely.
All of his acting choices are really strange too.
I kind of wondered if that was supposed to be like, are you going for like him acting non-human?
I didn't really get it, or like he's just kind of losing his mind or something. He was just strange.
Because if they're cyborgs, then he was human.
I didn't get it. I think he just was inflecting in a strange way. Yeah,
I agree. I do love though that if this was an RPG, you have the guy playing Gideon being like, "Okay, we're gonna help you. Actually, we're not going to like fight you or give you up. Instead, we're gonna." So I was confused how he got rid of the guy, like the Earth Force guy.
The
was he just like,
guy?
yeah? Does he just tell him like they all died or something? What does he tell them?
He doctors a video where basically he like calls them and says, "Hey, I know some stuff, so you should work with me and talk to me." And then in the video that he shows the general, that cuts immediately to their ship being shot down, as if Gideon had like manipulated them into talking so that he could lock onto their signal.
Oh, sure.
But what he actually does is when he talks to them, he sends them a little DM where he says, "Hey, listen, I totally know that you're cyborgs, and by the way, they poisoned you on purpose, so come hang out." And then they come hang out, and then he blows up their ship. And then they just put the whole video in Premiere and cut out the part where they cut off the ship.
It's a really easy cut, thankfully.
Yeah. And then the general's like, "Whoa, cool.
Wow, weird. Awesome. Good job. Thanks for doing your job."
And Gideon's like, "By the way, it seems like maybe they got the plague on purpose." And the general's like, "Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't ask questions.
They're gone now."
Love it when authority tells Gideon specifically not to ask questions, and he's like, "I did."
And I love that this is another example of Gideon's very particular brand of justice, where he's just like, "You know what? Fuck that guy. I'm gonna let these people live, because I don't like how he's toying with them and giving them the plague on purpose. That's not cool." And I've determined that Gideon's alignment is chaotic good.
Right.
I think he masquerades as lawful good, but he is chaotic good.
It is in not following authority and in like going against the grain that he creates. Like he develops a good moral compass. Again, stuff I would just love if the show was longer. Just get to see more of that. But
yeah,
alas, that covers most of the stuff. We have Gideon talking to Darina about her people. And this is where he reveals where the password and stuff came from. Apparently he was playing a game of Sharks, which is a card game?
I guess so. It's weird that they made up the name of a card game.
It's not real. Oh my god, I just Googled it. It's not a real game.
Yeah.
So we're just not allowed to we weren't allowed to guess what that was.
Like, why not just say poker? Why does it have to be called Sharks?
Yeah, he's like, we were playing Sharks. The guy's name was that, and he anteed up, and we bet security codes, and I won, and so he gave me all of his security codes, and that's why I know everything. Or that's why I was able to get in. It's like, wow, I guess that's interesting.
It is interesting. I think that is a characterful excuse for him knowing stuff.
Yeah. If you're going to give me something, give me that.
Yeah, I liked it.
Darina talks to Chambers and says, "You need to swear." She's like, "I'll swear on my life to find you a cure." And Darina says, "No, swear it on theirs." And then walks out because she's kind of cool sometimes.
Yeah, that was a good line.
And then we end on Max being a good boy for once. I'm so proud.
I was very happy as a Max stan.
I think I texted you. We stan a woke king.
A friend of mine at work is doing this bit now where he'll just like it's a bit that's almost like perfectly tailored to my sense of humor, and I'm the only person who gets it and thinks it's funny. And everybody else is like, what? But he'll do this thing where he just starts speaking the lyrics of the song Stan in a conversational way. Where he's like, hey, what's up, man? How's your daughter? And then he just keeps saying the verses. It's like, if I have a daughter, I'm going to name her Bonnie.
I read about your Uncle Ronnie, too. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because some of it's weird.
Yeah, some of it's really intense. So yeah, it's a shout out to Ben from work. But then I had to explain to someone what the song was because she'd never heard it before. And then I had to explain, like, you know how people say that they stan things?
Yeah.
It's from the song Stan.
Yeah. Now go listen to it. Now don't watch the video, but now go listen to Dido instead because Dido's pretty good. Or was in the 90s. Tis I'm gonna wonder why I can't.
That's a good song.
It is, and this was a good episode, Magellan.
Hey, sure.
Do you have any stray notes before we call it?
No, I do not.
Yart. That's my note, and I said it. Do you want to tell the kids and the adults at home what we're watching next time on Crusade Chats?
Sure, I'd love to. So, let's see. Again, we do things in kind of a weird order, but next time we're just going to go by the fragment order of the Canterbury Tales. So next week we're doing fragments. Let's see, fragments 6 and 7, which are groups C and B, B2. So fragment 6 is the Physician's Tale and the Pardoner's Tale. And then we're following that up with fragment 7, which is the Shipman's Tale, the Prioress's Tale, Sir Thoppas's Tale, the Tale of Melibee, the Monk's Tale, and the Nun's Priest's Tale. So you can check those out.
Someone spoiled for me that the Sir Thoppas's Tale talks about the birthplace of Flanders, which I'm like, I'm excited for that to go somewhere interesting. I like Flanders as a country.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I do have to grab my DVD box set to tell you actually what we're watching.
Okay.
All right. Next time for Crusade Chats, we're watching 2 more episodes of Crusade. First, we are watching The Path of Sorrows, which is episode 4 of Crusade. It was written, I don't have to say these things, but the summary is, on an unknown world rumored to be a place of healing, the crew finds an alien whose curative powers are emotional rather than physical, and who serves as a confessor for troubled intergalactic wayfarers. So that's going to be the classic, like, every character spills their guts episode.
Oh, I love it.
That's like when we were watching Buffy and we would love, like, the dream episodes or whatever, because it's like, here, let's explain who this person is.
Yes. It's delicious stuff.
Then we're watching Ruling from the Tomb, which is episode 6. Ruling from the Tomb, the summary says, the threat of plague that hangs over Earth is God's will to the sacred Omega Doomsday cult. Oh. And the Omegans try to speed Judgment Day by planting a bomb at an anti-plague action conference.
Oh. Antiplague.
Yeah, I've never seen that word before. I was really having trouble with it.
Antiplague. What's her face in that one?
Who?
The lady. Tracy Scoggins.
Lockley?
Lockley's in that one.
Yay.
Yeah, you know Lockley? Yeah, she's in that one.
Or do you think the Anti-Plague Action Conference is on B5?
I bet you it's on Mars, actually.
Really?
Because it's a conference. They usually don't do conferences. Like, it wouldn't... Oh, they do conferences on B5. Maybe it's on B5.
I think it's probably on B5.
The cowards would never actually put B5 in this show. They're just too afraid.
Who did we call the coward? Didn't we call someone a coward, or am I thinking of another podcast who calls?
No,
someone
we
a
do.
coward?
We definitely do stuff like that. No. They call You might be thinking of Let's Steal a Podcast, where they call the showrunner the coward.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
But I've also definitely said the coward Aaron Sorkin in my life.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Now we're saying the coward J. Michael Straczynski.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
But alas, cool, Magellan. Let's take it to the zone of plugs.
All right.
Can I do it this time?
Yeah, do it.
If you would like to email us questions, comments, or concerns, please send those over to chatspod@gmail.com. That's CHATZPOD@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter @chatspod, where we are posting things about the episode, Patreon content updates, and general Babylon 5 and chats goodies. Please consider rating us on your podcast platform of choice. That's how people hear about the show. And finally, if you would like to support us and get some bonus chats content in your ears at a regular rate, check out patreon.com/chatspod. We're over there at just $5 a month. You get all of our content right now. You do pilot chats. We watch the pilots of TV shows. If you liked it last week when we talked about the X-Files, that's basically what pilot chats is like. We also do chats nights every other week. We just kind of hang out. We've had a lot of really good chill episodes there lately. And we also do the monthly commentary chats where we watch a film. We talk over the film. We eat some food. We have a good time. Have some red, white wine. Make pink wine. It's great. It's great. Magellan, you're great. And I want you to tell me what your chatsum is for this week.
Oh, man. Oh, I got one. I don't know if this is going to sound like an advertisement, I think, because this is the kind of thing that probably gets advertised on podcasts. And I don't know that this is a full recommend. This is a decide for yourself if it makes sense or not kind of thing. But for Christmas, my mom got me 2 weeks of a meal delivery service called Freshly.
Okay.
And now I'm going to maybe pay for more of it myself. I'm not 100% sure yet.
What's different about Freshly than other food ordering services?
Well,
I
think the one people
food prep services.
I think the one people know is Blue Apron.
Yeah.
Which sends you ingredients and you make the meal.
Mm-hmm.
Freshly's and I'm sure there are other ones like Freshly, they send you microwavable things that have been made already.
Okay.
And you microwave them and eat them. So it's a step above going to the supermarket and stocking up on Hungry Man meals or whatever. But the food is nicer food. But they're pretty good. The pricing ends up working out that you're paying $10 per meal or something, which is maybe pricey, but for someone like me who eats out in New York City a lot or orders from Seamless a lot, it's cheaper. And the food is pretty decent also. So, I'd say check it out. And I think you get your first week slightly discounted. Your first 2 weeks are $45 instead of $60 for 6 meals, which is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. The packaging, it makes you think maybe I shouldn't order a bunch of these and keep getting a big box with
plastic.
With plastic that I have to recycle and stuff. So, I think this is turning into not a chatsum, but this is my chatsum. If you're looking for a thing to send you food, give it a shot and see if you like it. Freshly.
It definitely has a specific use case, it sounds like. Especially...
It's specifically my life is the use case.
Right.
Where I'm too lazy and busy to cook for myself. Yep. And therefore am spending too much money on food.
Right, and you don't have the time to also go out, so you're having food delivered to you, which ends up being much more expensive than even just making the food. So in a way,
right.
This I don't think that position is too uncommon, like what you just described. But yeah, there's something wrong with having something that's a specific use case. It's your chatsum, you do whatever you want,
It also makes eating at work a lot easier because
right, you just throw something in the microwave.
Toss something in the microwave, instead of walking to the deli or whatever.
Yeah,
I usually do.
Freshly, interesting.
Okay.
My chatsum is very humble, very small little thing. So people out there know that we really like Pokemon here at Chatzylon Studios in sunny Punta Cana, Mexico, I think.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I love Pokemon. It's one of my favorite things. And I follow the Pokemon YouTube channel, and they started posting this new video series that is called Pokemon Twilight Wings. And I know, like, I'm currently watching the running season of the Pokemon anime because I'm all the way down the hole. But, like, that's a little hard to recommend because right now it's only in Japanese. And I know some people don't want to, like, go look. And it's not, like, available legally anywhere. But Pokemon Twilight Wings is dubbed. It's gorgeous. It's basically like a 5-minute. Each episode's like a 5 to 10 minute mini series thing set that takes place in the Galar region, where the most recent games take place. It's going to be 7 episodes long. They're going to, I think, presumably come out weekly. And it's just really gorgeous. It's so fun to look at, and it kind of like gives you the things that are fun about Pokemon in a really digestible and quick way without getting into like any lore or any like setup. Because it seems like each episode's going to be self-contained. The first episode is about a boy who's in the hospital, and he really wants to get this letter to Chairman Rose, who's the Galar chairman of the Pokemon League. Chairman Rose comes to the hospital to like visit sick kids occasionally, and it's about him like trying to get him the letter. And again, just really, really beautiful and entertaining. If you even don't have any interest in Pokemon, Pokemon Twilight Wings is it's really great.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to Magellan for being the rock to my hard place. And thank you for listening to this episode of Chatzylon 5. Peace.
Bye-bye.